Told my dad I wanted to study psychology, but he said it was a waste of time and secretly withdrew my university application without telling me because he thought women in our family shouldn't be allowed to make independent life decisions. I informed him at dinner, just the two of us at the kitchen table, leftover spaghetti between us. Mom was working the night shift. I said it quietly, like I'd practiced. I've decided. I want to major in psychology. I was smiling, hopeful. I thought he'd be surprised, maybe even proud. But he didn't say anything right away. He just stabbed at his food, didn't look up. And then, out of nowhere, he laughed. A quick, sharp laugh, like I told him I was planning to be a clown. Psychology? He said, like the word itself was a joke. What are you gonna do with that? Sit around all day asking people how they feel? My face burned, but I held my ground. It's not like that, Dad. I've done my research. I want to be a therapist. Or maybe behavioral science. Lots of directions, really. He shook his head, the same scoffing look he's had since I was a teenager who dared to challenge his opinions. You're wasting your time. That's for people who don't know what they're doing with their life. You think you're going to save people? What do you know of real problems? It wasn't the first time he cut me down, but this one was different. I was already in the program. I had done the work. He just didn't know it yet. I thought perhaps telling him now, before orientation, would give us time to talk, to adjust, perhaps even win him over. But instead, he stood up, threw his partly eaten dinner in the trash, and muttered, "You should have done something practical, like accounting, or nursing, something women can actually do." I just sat there in shock, spoon still in my hand, heart plummeting like I'd been pushed off a cliff. I didn't even cry, not that night. I just froze. A few weeks went by, and I started getting emails from the university, strange ones. One said that they hadn't received all of my financial aid documents. Another said that my enrollment status had been placed on hold for requested withdrawal. I panicked. I called the admissions office and the woman on the phone seemed just as confused as I was. "It seems a withdrawal form was submitted online," she said. "Under your portal. Same login, same email. Already processed." My heart sank. I did not know what to say. I logged in myself, heart racing, and found the form. There it was. Withdrawal request confirmed, processed, done. My access was locked up not long after. I barely slept that night. I tossed and turned in bed, trying to make sense of it. The sole person who knew my login details besides me was my dad. I had written it down on a sticky note and left it on my desk a while back because the password was so long I couldn't keep forgetting it. My heart just knew. I confronted him about it the very next morning. I was shaking so much, I had to hold onto the kitchen counter. "Did you cancel my application?" I asked. He was sitting reading the newspaper. He did not even look at me. "What are you talking about?" he said casually. I walked over, placed the printed out email in front of him. My account was accessed. "You're the only person who knew the password." That was when he looked up. His face did not show guilt or regret, just calm certainty. "I did what's best for you," he said. "You're not ready for that kind of independence. Psychology is not a legitimate future, and you're not traveling across the country alone." End of discussion. I don't even remember what I said after that. I think I screamed, or cried, maybe both. My voice cracked so hard, my throat hurt for hours afterward. He simply stood there, arms crossed, as if waiting for a child to finish a tantrum, as if I was the insane one. I remained barricaded in my room the entire weekend. I did not eat. I did not speak to anyone, not even Mom. I could not. She did not know. That was the worst aspect. She discovered 2 days afterward, when I did not attend her hospital send-off party. She sat on the side of my bed, confused and angry, wanting to know what was going on, and I just cracked. Told her everything, each word, each email. She went white. I had never seen her so scared before. She didn't yell at him that night, not in front of me. She waited until I was asleep or thought I was, and then I heard them through the wall. Mom's voice, low and strained with anger. His, calm at first, then louder, defensive, saying things like I had to make a call and she's too young to understand what she's giving up. I don't think they knew I was listening, curled under the blanket, pillow pressed against my ear. I heard her say once, "You stole her future," and my chest ached so much I thought I was really going to throw up. I wanted her to burst into my room, tell me it would be okay, tell me she'd fix everything, but she didn't. Maybe she didn't know how. Maybe she was stuck too, like me. The next morning, she prepared breakfast for me like there was nothing wrong. I couldn't even stand to look at her. It was the start of this strange silence that crept into our house like the air itself was dense. Dad acted like everything was fine, mowed the lawn, paid bills, watched TV like the world hadn't just cracked open in our living room. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd built my whole senior year around this plan. I hadn't applied anywhere else. I hadn't even toured backup schools. I had scholarships, housing, a roommate all lined up, everything gone in one click. I couldn't even reapply because by the time I found out, the deadlines were gone. I felt like I was hovering above my life, watching another person's dreams burn to ashes while mine blew away like smoke. I spent most of my time in my room, mindlessly scrolling, avoiding messages from friends who still asked when I was moving, if I was excited. I lied, told them there were setbacks, that I was deferring for family reasons. I couldn't bring myself to say the truth out loud. Not yet, not to them. And then, one day, while I was folding laundry, my aunt phoned Dad's sister. She was asking how school preparation was going and I just lost it. I wasn't meant to. I wasn't going to say anything at all. But I guess the way she asked, so cheerfully, so innocently, something opened up. I told her everything, start to finish, crying harder than I'd cried in weeks. She was completely silent for a few moments, and then she said, "Oh my God." He did what? I could feel her anger building over the phone, that kind of quiet, measured rage only a woman who's been in the same place can have. She didn't say much after that, just said, "I'll call you back," and hung up. And that evening, Dad came home from work unsettled. His tie was loosened, his eyes were tired. He didn't say anything to me, could barely look at Mom. The tension was slicing. I found out the following day that my aunt had called him and ripped him apart, said he had no right, told him that if he didn't fix this, she'd tell every relative in the family what he'd done and never have anything to do with him again. And maybe that would not seem like such a huge thing to some, but in our family, appearances are everything. The idea of people knowing about losing face like that scared him. But despite that, he did not apologize. Not really. He just showed up at my door that evening and said, "I can attempt to call the school. Ask if they'll grant you an exception." As if that was enough. As if this were some business transaction, and I was lucky he was reconsidering. I didn't even answer him. I simply stared at the floor, fists clenched in my lap. It wasn't about the application anymore. It was not about what he thought he had a right to do. It was about how he saw me, like a child, like property, like my dreams were his to shape, or destroy, whenever it suited him. 2 days later, Mom knocked on my door, quietly placed a cup of tea on my nightstand, and whispered I didn't know. I swear, I nodded but said nothing. I couldn't, because in a sense, I blamed her too. Not for what he had done but for never hitting back before. For never showing me that it was okay to be strong. For letting him make her small and weak and tired all these years, until I thought that's what women were supposed to be. It was late September by the time I lost hope of waiting for somebody to make things right for me. My classmates were already posting dormitory pictures and campus life statuses, while I remained in my childhood bedroom, staring up at a ceiling I'd outgrown. Something within me opened up one morning when I saw a status of my old lab partner. She'd gotten into a psych honors program, already set up with a research team. I looked at her photo, her smiling and holding a clipboard, and I just started crying. Not sad, pretty crying, full on, stomach aching, ugly crying, because that was supposed to be me. That could have been me. I cried until my eyes burned, until my voice gave out. And when I was done, I wiped my face, pulled my laptop out from under my bed, and started looking up community colleges. Not the fancy ones, just something nearby, something where I could start over. I didn't have much of a plan, but I figured if I could get some credits started, I could try again for next year. It wasn't the dream, but it was something. I didn't mention it to my dad, not at first. I worked night shifts at a small coffee shop 2 towns over to pay the tuition myself. I was exhausted. I'd never been so tired in my life, soldiering through double shifts, studying during breaks, sneaking out before dawn so I wouldn't have to see him in the kitchen. But for the first time in weeks, I was awake, like I had a kind of control again. Like even though it was small, even though it wasn't flawless, it was mine. My very first class was Introduction to Psychology. I sat in the back, clutching my notebook, heart pounding. I thought I'd stand out, like I wouldn't belong. But when the professor started talking about cognitive development and the science of behavior, I came alive inside. It felt right, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. A few weeks in, we had to give a short presentation on why we'd picked psych. My hands were shaking when I stood up, but when I started talking, I didn't want to stop. I told the truth, in a small, careful way. Said I used to think psychology was just about feelings one time, but now I knew it was about understanding people, their pain, their stories, how they turn out to be the way they turn out to be. The room got quiet when I said that. A girl in the front row nodded. Another girl wrote something down. I don't know why, but it meant everything. Just to be heard. Just to talk and not get shut down. A few months later, Mom eventually found the printout of my new schedule tucked in one of her cookbooks. She asked me if I was taking courses. I told her yes. Told her I was paying for it myself. Told her I didn't need his permission. She didn't say a word. Just hugged me and whispered, "I'm proud of you." I didn't cry. Not then. That night in bed, however, with that sentence echoing in my chest, I cried until my pillow was wet. Because I hadn't heard those words in so many years, I had forgotten the sound of them. Dad did find out, naturally. I think he noticed the mileage on my car. Maybe he heard it from someone at church. He didn't say anything to me directly. Started giving snide comments during dinner such as, "Still chasing that nonsense?" Or "Hope you're not burning too much gas going nowhere." I didn't take the bait. I stopped arguing with him, not because I agreed but because I no longer needed his approval. Every test I passed, every paper I turned in, every after-midnight study session when I was sure I was losing my mind, it wasn't for him. It was for me, and that made all the difference. The following spring, I received an email from the same university that years before had sent me my withdrawal confirmation. It was about next year's application cycle, deadlines, scholarships, re-enrollment options. I stared at the screen for a bit, just sitting in my car outside the coffee shop after my long shift. For a moment, I felt that old pain in my chest, that heaviness from what happened. But this time I didn't feel broken, just steady, calm. I took a breath, and I opened up the application again, this time under my own account. New password, no sticky notes. I didn't tell Mom, not my friends, and definitely not Dad. I wanted to just do it for me, quietly. And when the acceptance letter came in June, I opened it in my room alone, covered my mouth with my hand, and smiled so hard my face hurt. Not because somebody gave it to me, not because it was perfect, but because I earned it. Through exhaustion, through doubt, through silence. The night I told Mom, she cried and asked if she could come on move-in day. I said yes, of course. And then, after a really long silence, she asked if I'd ever forgive him. I didn't answer right away. I don't think she expected me to. The truth is, I have no clue. There are some days where I believe I could. If he would only express genuine remorse. If he would only meet my eye and tell me he was wrong not just about the application, but about how he raised me to believe I wasn't meant to live my own life. Other days, I still feel that tenderness in my chest. Not hate, just quiet distance. Like I've already started building a world without him at its center. Move-in day was sweaty and stressful and achy in my back from hauling boxes. But also this wild, pulsing joy. I looked around that tiny dorm room, 2 beds, a desk, blank white walls, and it was potential. Not perfect, just a beginning. My roommate, Maya, seemed nice. She asked me what I was studying, and for the first time in a while, I said it out loud without flinching. Psychology, I told her, something I've worked for. Later that night, after all boxes were unpacked, I sat by the window, watching students stroll across the quad below, laughing, yelling, playing music. I thought of that girl as the one who'd cried on her bedroom floor, powerless. I thought of how far she'd come, and I wasn't angry anymore, just proud, quietly, deeply proud. I don't need him to see what I've built. I don't need his validation. He tried to write my story for me, but I picked up the pen, and now this chapter's mine.